Welcome to Brand Lover, honest, real, and lively conversations for flourishing entrepreneurs and budding business owners on a mission to cultivate a heartfelt brand that connects with their purpose-driven mission. My hope is that you walk away feeling inspired and refreshed with a weekly takeaway in your back pocket that you can apply to your life or business. Welcome to the beautiful Yvette Sitters from Manage My Wedding. She has created the most beautiful brand that literally removes the stress and overwhelm from planning your wedding and has saved countless brides from becoming bridezilla. I'm sure she hears stories like that all the time. I'm so excited to, hear in her own words what she does. So welcome, Yvette. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself personally and also about your business.
Yeah, sure. So I am a wife and a mother of two little girls. They're 4 and 7, and I live on the Gold Coast, but I have lived all over the world. And I created Manage My Wedding in 2015 when I launched my business when my daughter was my second daughter was 3 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I'm not sure why I did that, but hey. And that's when Manage My Wedding was launched. And Manage My Wedding is, well, to some people, it's a wedding planning app that couples can plan their own wedding themselves with. And I have a podcast and a wedding course as well. But I like to really think of it as it being a place that the bride-to-be comes so that she can have a really joyful wedding experience and so that she can feel calm and relaxed and excited to the lead up and, know how to handle family and all those things instead of that like crazy, stressed out and overwhelmed. So, yeah, I really like to be there to kind of nourish and support them through that journey and that kind of mindset side as well.
Yes, 100%. I'm sure you hear this all the time. I 100% wish there was something like that around when I was planning my wedding, because I remember you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, people have done this before you, but when you come to do it yourself, it's all new to you and you have no idea, when it comes to dealing with, family issues or seating charts or even just planning the music for the wedding. Like, what do you need? How many songs do you need? What do you do for this? Like, it's so overwhelming. Yeah, I love that you've created this go-to for brides, but it doesn't seem to me the most obvious topic or theme to start a business around. So I would love to hear how your journey began. How did it all start? How did you get into this world?
Yeah. So I had always worked in the events, weddings, and like hotels sort of side of things. And I had really, worked all over the world. I spent a lot of my time in London working there. And I always, I used to do big events as well, like the BAFTAs and the Queen's garden party and lots of like really big things. But I was always drawn back to weddings. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was constantly drawn back to weddings. And I think it's because of that emotional connection and that relationship that I would have with the wedding couples. So I've been in the wedding industry now for like over 22 years. I had my daughter and my first daughter, and I remember being at home on maternity leave and quickly, getting a little bit bored.
Yeah.
I was in Adelaide. I was kind of on my own. I didn't have my own friends and family around me, and I was a bit lonely. And I was also on the other side thinking, how am I ever going to go back into events and weddings? Like, I was doing 70-hour weeks. I used to travel a lot. And I just didn't know how that was going to fit anymore. And I also knew I've worked so hard for so long that I deserve to actually be at home with my baby. Like, I knew that, but then there was that side of me that was like, oh, but you're just so got to do something.
Yeah.
And my friends were constantly getting married, and I was always giving them like my resources and my spreadsheets and things like that. And then I just remember one day, a good friend of mine, she's actually Adelaide based actually. And I remember her saying to me, why don't you like just do this as your own business? Like, why aren't you just giving us all these resources? And that's what sort of got me thinking. And I was like, well, apps are really like becoming a thing at the time. They were becoming
Yes.
a thing. And it was all the like, everyone was speaking about it, right? Everyone was.
Yes, it was. I remember.
I remember sitting down when my daughter was like probably 2-3 months old and going, I'm just going to put all my resources into an app. And so bridal couples can utilize them instead of like just giving it away to everyone. So that's how it kind of began. And I just during, my maternity leave as such, I sketched out what the app looked like. And that's kind of how it was born.
It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, totally.
Sounds so easy.
At the time, it felt like it was going to be as simple as that, right?
Yes. We never know what's ahead of us, do we?
No, we don't.
I think there's beauty in that, though. It's kind of a blessing.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. I did not know.
Yeah.
4 years coming.
Wow. So, I mean, now you've got a podcast, and you've just recently launched your first wedding course, which couples can download and access anytime when they're planning their wedding, which is amazing. So congratulations. It's just so exciting. So I know how much work goes into that. Yeah. So yeah, and we've been chatting recently about this evolution of your brand. I mean, starting from an app and then moving into, what you're doing now, and how, just how that was feeling for you. Could we just explore that a little bit about how the podcast came about, how the course came about, and sort of how you're feeling now after going through all of those learning curves?
Yeah. Well, it took me 2 years to kind of get the app to launch, and that was purely made up of trying to find someone to develop the app. And then when it actually was pushed out in 2017 at the end of the year, I was loving it. The app flew to number 1 in the App Store within 3 months of being launched for weddings.
Wow.
But I felt like something was missing. And I was like, oh, yay, I've got all these downloads. I don't know anybody, like I kind of just, I worked out I was missing kind of that communication part because it's all technology. And it kept like niggling at me, that intuition telling me that I needed to start a podcast. But, obviously, I think it took me about 10 months to actually get the courage to do it. And I think that having children kind of strips a bit of that courage that you previously had, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the missing link. So I thought, okay, great, I'll do the podcast. And so I started the podcast, and that was the best thing I ever did. It allowed me to talk to other vendors. It allowed me to talk to brides who had just gotten married. And it started to give me kind of that human connection.
Yeah.
Also create a personal brand as well, so that people could get to know me, because when they're in an app, they don't have a clue who's they know nothing. So they just use this tool that they love, and that's about it. So I started to link the episodes in the app so people could kind of get to know me and get to know the person kind of behind that technology. So yeah, that's how the podcast sort of started. Then I dipped into having a store, because I was like, well, how am I going to monetize like the business now? Like, how am I going to get that going? And I kind of dipped my toes in having my own online store, so driving my traffic to the store. And that was a massive learning curve and journey of learning really what wasn't right for me. And it took me a long time to work that out and realize that's not me, and I don't want to be up at 10 o'clock at night packing orders, and I'm not passionate about that. I'm telling you, I don't pack nice orders either. They're not the stock's beautiful, but when I package it up, that is not me,
I love that, Donna. I love
and
that.
Again, there was still the missing connection again between me and humans. And then now it's 4.5 years since I've had the business, and I now realize that I was being led to more human connection. And that's when I suppose the course idea came up, and I was like, well, people love the app, but they still want me to hold their hand now that they know me from the podcast. And yes, they can do what the app says, but they want someone really with them, supporting them along the way. And yeah, so that's where I decided to create the course and come up with that. And I have really loved that. It's been challenging and I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. I can now get to know people more and spend time with humans. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And I love that, you know, just following your intuition has led you to this place where you are now. And I can 100% relate to having those niggles and trying to ignore them when you said about the podcast, and just like knowing that deep down it's going to happen. It's inevitable, but you try to ignore it. So I totally right. So also just, you know, your comments about with the podcast, you sort of accidentally created a personal brand, didn't you? Like that wasn't actually strategic, but it's worked out to the benefit of the business overall, because everybody knows you now as Yvette from Manage My Wedding, not just Manage My Wedding. And that's something that we explored when we worked together recently. But just, you know, learning to surrender to these types of things, it feels really scary, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Like, you've got to really get over that whole having that self-belief and that imposter syndrome. And, you know, there's so many thoughts and feelings around that. There's so much to overcome. And that's, I think, the best part of it. Like, I love the journey and the growth part, I think, more than I love the goal. That when I hit a goal, you know, that part of it, you just learn so much about yourself. And that is the biggest thing I've learned is the business has never grown when I work on the business. The business, I realize now, only grows when I work on me. And that is a really lovely thing once you come to that realization. You stop trying to force those business things. Just lean into yourself and your gut. And I tell you what, if I learned that sooner, I'm sure things would have happened faster, but it happens the way it's meant to happen.
It's a process. And I totally relate in not quite realizing how much of a self-development journey business would be, particularly after motherhood, but that's a whole nother thing to explore. I mean, I don't think that, like, letting go and surrendering it's not a natural thing. Like, we like to have control, and it's also, you know, you mentioned that you tried having an online store, and even though you probably worked out pretty quickly that it wasn't for you, it's like we still insist on pressing forward with these things that we think are what we should be doing, right?
Yeah, totally. Yes. And I think I don't know for you, but I know for me that when we do that, I think it's like that failure thing. Like we kind of try and ignore it because that could mean failing, like at that. And that's actually not the truth at all. Like, that is so far from the truth. So far from the truth, I think.
100%. We don't want to feel like we're a failure. But the other thing too, you know, that I've learned is that there are many, many ways to serve an audience. Like, there are many offers that you can create that are going to fulfill a need for somebody. And just because initially you thought it might look one way, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in another way.
No, absolutely. And I think, like, when it happens in one way and then it happens in a totally different way, it's always bigger and better.
Yes, exactly. But then I often think, this is getting a bit philosophical now, it's like, if you'd skipped straight to that, would it have been as big or as good if you hadn't gone through the learning curve and the stepping stone to get there? Like, I like to sort of think of it as literally like a little step. It's going to sort of elevate you that little bit further. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I just love that you're sharing that so honestly, because so often we persist and we give so much energy to something when really, even though we've got, you know, like you said with the podcast, you had that intuition, you had that inkling, and then with the course, like I feel like if we can learn that, we have to learn it, but then the more we go through that, and the more we sort of exercise it, the more confident we can be in doing that and just being like, okay, fine, let's just do it. And it happens faster each time. And
Yes, I
we've
agree.
witnessed that with your course. That I remember we were discussing, like just maybe at the end of last year or the start of this year, and now it's out there and it's like it's doing its thing and there's couples benefiting from it, and that's a pretty short lead time. So yeah, I think that's a really beautiful reminder to other people who are going through something, or maybe they're persisting with something. It's just not working. Like I've found that myself, even in some things in my business where you just feel like you're bashing your head against a brick wall when really you just need to turn around and open the door behind you.
Absolutely. Totally.
Yeah,
When it doesn't feel right, it's funny. Like I've learned now, like like you said, because you get quicker at realizing stuff. And I've worked out now when things don't feel right. Okay, I've just got to write it down. Like
yeah.
I've got to write it down, and I've got to write it down so I can actually articulate it. Because it's just all these thoughts just swirl in your head and swirl in your head, and then sometimes when you write it down, it's just so much quicker to like go, oh,
Yeah, the clarity comes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's something magical about handwriting too. Like I just think it triggers some part of the brain, and it allows that, the flow, I think, for
I
want of a
agree.
better way. I don't know how to explain it any better than that.
Yes,
That,
totally.
and yeah, just as an aside, that's exactly why with my brand clarity guides, I provide them for people to print out and hand write them, because it's so much more of a creative thing to be, for your body to be communicating with your brain and writing things down rather than typing. It's just not the same. And I actually read an article about it. I can't remember who it was by, but yeah, that's such a good tip. I think just if you're feeling unclear, or if you're wanting to find any kind of clarity in your business or your brand, just the simple act of journaling helps you to process. I'm not a psychologist, but I do know that it works. So thank you
Yep.
for sharing that.
Totally agree. And even writing down ideas, like I'm learning that,
Yeah.
gosh, I wish I'd written down half of the ideas I come up with.
Oh, I know what you mean. I can be going for a run or a walk and just have like 1,000 ideas and then get home and can't remember any one of them. So disappointing.
No, and it's there, it's there, but you can't quite get it.
No, but if it's meant to be, it'll come about another way. And sometimes it's just the seed that needs to be planted. So getting back on track, we sort of had a little chit chat there. So now that you have found yourself in a really good place now, like you have built a really beautiful brand ecosystem where the app and the podcast and the course, they kind of all feed into each other. And that's a beautiful, they all kind of speak to each other, and your couples or your brides can, they can go on this little journey. I would love to explore sort of how establishing the app first has fueled that, perhaps. Just sort of how that sort of all worked out, if it was intentional or if it's just been part of this whole journey for you.
I think, you know what? I think there's parts that are intentional, and then there's parts that are not, and that are just flowing. And I think at the beginning, everything is intentional, like everything, because you're kind of feeling your way and working it out. So yeah, you start with dead set intention.
Yeah.
But I've also learned that when there's intention, and I put a lot of pressure on myself as my personality, the intention can sometimes build up into expectation of yourself. I know that that's happened for me. And as I've kind of grown and growing, and more so of late, I've really realized that and hitting, I think, rock bottom in the sense of exhaustion and burnout
Yeah.
and complete flat on my back. I have learned that no, you've got to stop the expectation and setting so many intentions, and just let it flow and be guided in the right direction. And this has only been a new thing for me for the last couple of months. And since that has happened, and I've just sat back and stopped everything and just letting things just come to me, I'm listening to my intuition. I'm just following the universe and being guided. And everything is happening so much more easier.
Yeah.
And everything feels so much more lighter.
Yeah.
But then I'm doing things with real intention, but in a different sense, not with expectation.
Yeah.
It's an intention that's like, oh, I've been guided to this today. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it really well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, it's really changed for me in that sense. It's been really lovely.
Yeah. I can tell. I can see it.
Yeah.
Face. She's I mean, this is on YouTube as well, but for those listening on the podcast, Yvette's just glowing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's I totally understand that. And I think that strategically it's important to start a business with intention, and you kind of have to. You don't have anything established yet to sort of allow to flow. But it's so important to have those foundations, and then sometimes the vision that we cast isn't exactly how we end up, but that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Like it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Yes, totally.
It's okay to recalibrate, and also like different seasons in our lives bring different things. And you know, you were mentioning before the growth that we experience on this journey, like we become almost different people to maybe when we started our business, and things aren't, you know, we see things a little differently or a little bit more clear in a certain area. So recalibrating is something that I believe is actually integral to big business success, to always be in alignment with where you're going, rather than trying to achieve a vision that was maybe set by a past version of yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. And even, you set the goal at the start of the year. There's nothing wrong with constantly reassessing that. Like I never did that until this year. I always think like, that's the goal and I've got to stick to it. And if I didn't hit it, I'm devastated. And now I've realized, but hang on, just change it. Like it's not right anymore. Change it. Go with what
Exactly
needs to be.
Exactly. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's your business, it's your life, and the two aren't mutually exclusive.
No, and it's that whole identity piece too, I think. Like we are attached to an identity of our past.
Yeah.
And you start to ask yourself a lot of questions like, oh, who am I now? Who I don't have to be that person anymore.
Yes.
I'm this person now.
That's it.
What works for this person?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And something that really stuck with me when I was going through some massive imposter syndrome when I first decided to create my course, my signature course brand Alchemy. I came from a one-on-one background. Like I was a brand designer. I was a graphic designer. That's all I was in my head. But I knew that I could help people in this new way. But there was a statement that really stuck with me, because I was umming and ahhing, like, do I, don't I, like, who am I to do this? And it was, you need to create the person that you want to be. It's not necessarily discovering who you are. It's about actually actively going, this is who I need to be to serve these people in this certain way. What do I need to do to become that person? And it's not about becoming like a different personality or anything, but it really gives you that little bit of courage to step into that next level version of you.
Oh, absolutely. Totally. I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think that future version of yourself that you want to be is always going to be a better, bigger person. Like,
Yeah.
always.
How exciting.
I know. We could get really deep on this, I'm sure.
We could. But I really want to explore a certain topic with you, because this is something that I've, it's not common for me. You're my first person that I've worked with who has actually had an app, which is just, I know I keep coming back to the app, but I know you said from inception to actual delivery of the app was about 2 years. Tell us a little bit about that journey and what it actually takes to creating an app, like a really abridged version. If you can. For those who are interested in doing that type of thing.
It's a very interesting topic, and I could talk about this for hours, but
yeah, I'm sure.
I learned a lot. I knew nothing about apps at all, nothing. I just knew I wanted an app. I didn't know anyone who developed apps. I don't know coding. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest hurdle for me was actually finding someone, and that's why it took so long. And then it's not like building a website. So it's not just done. You can't just sit down and smash it out over a week and have a new website. Like, you're dealing with another person, and they're a coder. They don't think like you in the marketing brain or the design or anything. They're just a coder. And so finding someone took a long time. It took me about 18 months, and I went through, I had a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls with people that claimed to be developers that weren't. And then it was really hard to find someone, basically. And then I did find someone who did an amazing job and built me a wonderful app. But then that was another whole learning process, because they decided to change platforms and decided that if anyone wanted to stay with them, he had to build a new app, and they wanted $100,000 to build my app again. I'm like, I've only had an app for 3 years. Like, where's my return on investment? And that was another whole big journey. Again, finding another person or wanting to continue to do business. Like, oh my gosh, I went through so much to go, is this what I should be doing? Like, I've got to find more money that wasn't there. And it just, again, and that was all about finding the right person. And I now have a new app, and it didn't cost me $100,000. It didn't cost me nowhere near that, or I wouldn't have done it. And he's an amazing human, and he's done a wonderful job. And again, that comes down to humans and connection. Like, I think you always know it and you feel it. But if there was anybody, that was wanting to build an app, that is the biggest thing, is you've got to find the right person, and you've got to persist until you know in your heart that they're the right person. But then it's not just about the coding. I had so much to learn about marketing, and trying to get your app to rank in the App Store is massive. It's based on reviews, it's based on how many times people go into the app, it's based on downloads, it's based on the SEO, which they call ASO. Like, there's so many components. Well, otherwise you're going to be number 200 in your category, and no one's ever going to find you. So it was huge learning. Like, I was just constantly just trying to soak in more information, and it's really hard to actually find good information on Google when you building an app. That's an actually really hard thing to find, I've discovered. So
exactly. It's not a common thing, like it's easy to start a digital business. It's easy for me, like, it was just the easiest thing in the world to run a service-based business from home. It's pretty simple, really. Like, the mechanics of it, the marketing's a whole nother thing. But it's much more common, and there's this, I can imagine there's this an incredible, and you must just be filled with information that you could, there's another business idea for you. But
trust me, that one is on the list, because I do have people come to me who are like, we've built an app, but we just can't get it to rank, or we're having trouble. Can you give us some tips? And so I do help people from time to time, and I do have a document that I kind of share with them to kind of help. So that's another whole thing. Maybe one day we'll see.
One day thing. Or maybe maybe this is the inkling. Maybe this is the start of something, but I won't do that because you just found yourself in a really good place.
I know.
I'm not going to go there. Okay, so to wrap up, what would your recommendation be to somebody who has got an idea for an app? Like they're just at that very early stage where you were with your 3-month-old at home. They've got a really awesome idea for an app. What would you recommend?
Lots of things, but the main thing would be to really know yourself exactly how that app is going to function and look. Do not think you can go and find someone who's just going to create your idea for you. You have to really know how you want that app to function for the user, because that will make or break your app. And that's, I think, the biggest mistake from talking to other people. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes most of them have made, is they just thought, I've got this idea and I'll find a developer and he'll just do it. And that's just doesn't work. Like, you really have to know the nitty-gritty of the user experience, and not the coding of what the user experience is going to be at the front. That's probably my biggest tip. And when you know that, then be prepared to take a long time to find the right person to build that for you.
That's amazing advice. But I think, you said that in your heart, you know it. When you're making a big investment, not even in business, but in life as well, it makes sense to do your research and to talk to as many people as possible, and invest that time before you invest your money, and know that, even if you're paying a little bit extra, to have that connection and that open communication is just going to make your life so much easier.
Yes.
And make a hard thing just a little bit easier as well.
Yes, definitely.
So, oh my goodness, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful chat. I mean, we could have talked about so many of those topics that we explored in much more detail. But I'd like to finish off with a really fun rapid fire question session.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask what your favorite thing is. I'm going to say a word, and whatever pops into your mind.
Okay.
Keep it clean, Yvette.
All right. I've loved this today. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome.
So much. I've really enjoyed talking with you too.
Okay. What's your favorite app?
Oh gosh. My own app, of course.
Of course.
That's a hard question. I have so many apps on my phone.
Top 3?
I have a lot of apps, if I'm honest with you. I have a lot of apps. That's actually a really hard question. I do love I wish that was an easy answer. I love anything that organizes me, to be honest. So I love anything that just keeps me organized. And I have an app to organize most parts of my life. I have an app that organizes my fitness and my nutrition and our meals. And I have an app that, for my diary. I have an app for my family's diary. Like, I'm just any apps that are all about organization and planning. That's me. I can't give you one. I have lots.
At least it makes sense. All right. What's your favorite?
But for inspiration, YouTube. I'm obsessed with YouTube at the moment. It inspires me to be a better person every day.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff on YouTube. I'm not a huge explorer of YouTube, but my kids use it for research all the time, and I love it because they can do their own science experiments, and they can teach themselves how to draw something, and it's just like really empowering because there's so much you can learn there.
So much. Like, I can just be saying, well, I wonder why I'm feeling a bit flat today, and I can just, like, while I'm doing my makeup, just pop on a quick 10-minute YouTube video, and by the end of doing your makeup, you can feel amazing. So, yeah.
All right, this was supposed to be rapid fire.
I know. It is.
Got stuck on another conversation. Okay. Favorite time of day?
Oh, the morning at 5 a.m.
Oh, crazy lady.
I know. I do live on the Gold Coast.
True. Okay, exercise.
I love to run.
Nice. Habit?
No. Habit.
It doesn't have to be a healthy habit. It can
It
just
doesn't
be your favorite habit.
I have to have a coffee in the morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite way to relax.
Oh, I love to journal, which I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And I love to just sometimes meditate or be just on my own with a good book.
I like
And,
it.
yeah.
Okay, last one. What's your favorite thing about your business?
Oh, the relationships.
Yeah.
That the business and client both, like,
Yeah.
relationships, definitely.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Online is so powerful.
It really is. And I don't know, I'm just on that before we finish up. Some of the, like you, for example, and so many others like you, are just so many women and inspiring women that I'd never expected to meet when I started marketing online. Like it's just something that's just, it's just this beautiful gift that you get to just be part of this special community. So
It's amazing.
thank you. Thank you for being part of my community and sharing so honestly and, vulnerably here. And I really enjoyed chatting with you. And I'm sure our listeners would love to come and say hello or, come and follow along, particularly if they do happen to be getting married. So where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Manage My Wedding. I think that's the best place. I love chatting on Instagram. But also, thanks so much for having me, Rachel. I've loved talking with you. I think I could talk to you forever. It's been a pleasure, and it's been wonderful even working with you. You've been so wonderful. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this week's episode of Brand Lover, take a screenshot of wherever you're listening and share your biggest takeaway on Instagram or Facebook, and don't forget to tag me. I'd love to give you a shout out and thank you personally. Also, feel free to subscribe and leave a review to help the Brand Lover podcast reach more heart-aligned entrepreneurs just like yourself. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.